Hi everybody, this is How Do You Act Good? We're asking Abby Quinn, how do you act good?
Oh, is that that's the first question?
I've never done that in my life, but yeah.
How do you act good?
How do you act good?
Oh, I think 2 words. 3 words. You know it.
Okay, well thanks for being on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've never done a podcast.
Well, okay.
But I've always no, I actually think I have, but it's always interested me.
Yeah.
And then it also makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's because of like the expectation of it needing to be. I mean, even the reason why I wanted to start it is just because the conversation we were having there, which was like, okay, we're getting into the.
Yeah.
You were saying I guess we could just launch into it.
Yeah, let's launch.
I find for me what's helpful is just trying to have a conversation, like make it sound like we're just being honest and normal. Yeah, because it's like we don't, like no one really knows, you know?
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
You were saying the reason why you, like, we were having a little conversation and you were saying that you sort of escape into a world or something, and the reason you like acting is you bop all over.
I think that is what I said. I think, yeah, like, or post working, and maybe it's just because I've been in LA for a while, but like, I think what I've liked about not having like much time in between 2 projects is like getting to know a new place, not really being grounded anywhere. And I think that's maybe what I like now about acting, I think.
Do you find like it's stressful to not? So you don't find it stressful? You like that?
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I think it's not more stressful like being in one place for a while, but I think what it is like you're so busy when you're invested in a project and when you're filming every day, and then it's like a come down sometimes of like returning home. Yeah. So I think if there was no home to return to, how fun would that be?
Well, okay, that's funny because that's been my life for the last like 4 months, or no, like year and a half, I guess.
Really?
And that was the weird thing is I was getting stressed by it, like until this, just having a place that I could actually stay. Yeah. Even though it's not my own. Yeah. It was like. Yeah. But it was weird because like I never have felt like that before. But then I was like, oh, I really don't have people be like, where do you live? And I'm like, I don't know.
Don't know. And maybe I've never had that. So like maybe if that is what was happening, I would be so stressed.
So is it that you have a place to go? Like, do you think that's helpful?
Well, I don't know. I think maybe because I've lived in the same place for a while, maybe I'm just like itching for something new. Yeah. That could be the fix. And maybe it's not that I don't want a home base, because I think I do want a home base, but there's something fun about like being a little nomadic.
Right. So it's nice.
Which I haven't been.
So like it's helpful to have the home base then as a takeaway.
I think it is helpful to have a home base and then still have excuses to like travel. Yeah. Keep busy. I think I enjoy being busy and like having structure.
Right. Because you don't have that normal. Like any actor does.
I think, but that is what I'm realizing. Like you just have to figure out how to fill the space in between. Yeah. But is that what you feel? Okay.
How do you do that? Because
I don't know. I was gonna ask you.
Writing. I like writing a lot.
Yeah.
And jiu-jitsu, having like a daily class that I can go to.
And that's what I try to do. I think I just need to get used to like I did try jiu-jitsu. Now I go horseback riding.
Oh, do you?
I do.
Oh,
but it's
cool.
so infrequent. Like I think I need this is what it is. And let me know if I'm rambling.
No, I by the way, I want you to, because I find that I talk too much. I started to realize like they're gonna hear me every podcast and like they're gonna be bored.
So you want me to interrupt?
Yeah. Well, sure, you could do that as well. But we're just like the more you're talking, the better, I think. Okay. Better than me.
Totally.
Rambling.
Totally. I think I just need to like find, how do I say this? Like know that the in-between moments are also important, and even if the structure feels like arbitrary sometimes, it's still important to like have a full life, even if it's not related to work, which sometimes feels not pointless, but like sometimes doesn't hold as much weight as working, but I think it does. So I need to like just have a structure day to day.
Yeah, and it's weird because like I feel like we do like I'm projecting, but I definitely feel like I do this where I'll say one thing's important, acting is more important, being on set, that's the work, that's what I'm living for, and then everything else is of less importance. But then it's also, it kind of inflates the acting to a point where it's like maybe it's not as, you're putting too much on it.
Yeah, and I think so.
Because like when we're gonna die, you know, I feel like a second's a second, whether it's on camera or behind camera, you know what I mean?
When we're gonna die. When you
look back, it's like, like this, like if we were acting or whatever, I feel like it's nice in a way that it's also kind of real, because like this is a real moment of my limited amount of time on Earth. Like What, do you feel like depressed after, or like do you feel like the down is like sad?
I think it depends on the project. Sometimes I'm like, I was ready to leave that. The project? Yeah, it feels like wrapped up. I got, I'm close to those people. I'll take that with me, but like I'm done with the project.
Which one specifically? And whose fault was it? No, I'm joking. What was the movie Beep?
I'll tell you later.
Sure.
But I do think it depends. Like, I think it depends on the project. I'm trying to think, like, I think the biggest come downs I've ever had were in high school, like after a play ended. I think theater experiences like are much more intense because it's longer and like, you become closer. I feel like, do you feel that? Like with theater stuff, it's easier to get
closer to people?
Closer. Maybe it's just because it was an experience that like would last months and months.
Right.
So those are my biggest come downs in high school. And then since I feel like this last one was big because it was like a similar thing, or is big. I'm like having it now.
So are you in the middle of it?
Maybe I'm at the beginning.
Oh shit.
No, I'm probably in the middle of the come down. But I think because there was like no separation, like we would leave work and then go to a house with each other and like never not hanging out. So I think it's highlighting like being back home, the importance of routine and like structure and seeing people, because I think that can get lost. Yeah.
Do you do things, so do you think it's sort of irrelevant what you do as long as you feel like there's a structure and you're fulfilled by it? Here's another question.
Yes.
Do you feel an obligation to continue acting in some way, or like growing as an artist, or are you like, no, I want downtime?
No, I think I feel that.
Yeah.
To some degree. Like, yes. Or maybe even, but then sometimes it's like, well, how can I really accomplish that? That's when it starts to feel a little like, it could be aimless at times, but I don't think anything is. Like, I think doing anything is better than doing nothing. Does that make, like, it'll all inform stuff later, like reading or writing or music and movies. Like, that all is very important in the long run.
Right.
In the in-between moments.
When you say doing anything, do you mean just like living, or doing anything even tangentially like attached to creativity?
I think living and like doing having creative pursuits. Like, I think it all matters, but sometimes it's hard, especially if you're in like a come down period, to like do things that'll feel less important, but it all does. Like, I'll read a book and then months and months later be like, oh, I'm so glad I know all of that now, or like have that experience because it is informing this, or I'm so glad I listened to that album then because now it makes sense for like this moment in my life or this job. Like,
yeah, right. Do you remember a thing that do you remember a recent experience where you've drawn from something that you've done in your downtime, and like how it relates to your process?
Good question. I think well, it'll happen a lot with movies more, like, or wait, was I talking about this? Like, I was, like, when I'm, when I'm working on a movie, I will need, depending on the project, like need to be watching movies and to feel like reinvigorated by a performance or just like the tone of something. I think can reinvigorate that. But I'll like, yeah, I think I'm watching a lot of movies just in life can be very helpful, and then I'll like, or Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think about that all the time.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm so glad I saw it because I just feel like I'm always like reminded of the feeling that I walked away with after seeing it. Unbelievable. How?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It changed my life. Like
it actually changed my life.
Yeah, I was bawling for the last 45 minutes. Like I just
Same.
uncontrollable.
All right. I won't.
You could if you wanted to.
When did you
see it? Or when
did you see it and what? Yeah, like what moments?
Well, I could talk about this all day. So yes. Well, first of all, I called my brother for an hour after.
Yeah.
And that's all. And we just talked about it. It just blew me away. For one.
Yeah.
I mean, one element was the fact that it was like an Asian story, and I just saw my grandma in it. You know, it was weird to just see. So I feel like there was a part of me that already felt connected to it.
Yeah.
But then also to see, first of all, the husband who was just happy.
Yeah.
Like never do you see a character who's
happy.
Yeah, who's valued for that, and especially as like, I think especially as like a guy, I was watching it, be like, oh, there is. Because I feel like for me, I function better when I'm happy, but I also feel like there's a huge stigma around just being happy and being like naive and like people judging you based on it. And I watched that and I was like, oh, you could just be, there is real existential value in being happy. And then the rocks.
Oh, the rocks.
Laugh out loud, but it was just text and rocks.
Yes. That's actually when I was crying.
Hardest. When it was
when the rocks, when they would keep flashing back to the rocks, because it just felt like I need to rewatch it, but I remember just feeling like, oh, there are these people who want to be so close, but then they are rocks, like, and as rocks they can't even move to like inch closer, but they still are just wanting to be connected, but there's like so much in between.
Yeah, it was beautiful. By the way, spoiler. So before we continue, I mean, whatever. If they haven't seen it, I hope you see it. You have to see it. In fact, it was funny. I saw like all of my friends. It had the most crazy word of mouth, like publicity ever, because it was incredible.
Yes.
And the acting was great, and the action was incredible.
And they did it a lot of that themselves.
What
the stunts and the action. I think
he was. So the husband actor, I forget what he played. He played like a classic role. I think it was in Indiana Jones, maybe.
Yes, and Goonies.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then he just quit because he was like, I will never be like a legitimate character outside of this sort of like stereotype.
Yes.
And then I think he saw Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes.
And then he contacted his agent and was like, you know what? I think because he was a stunt guy.
Yeah.
He's like, contact his agent, like, I want to give it a shot. Just maybe send me out for something. The next script he got was this.
Yeah.
It was fucking brilliant. Doesn't that? I want to do that. That, and then I saw this Mark Rylance play in London.
Yeah.
Called Jerusalem, and I'm like that and that. Like those are the things.
What about Jerusalem?
It was just, I've talked about it endlessly, even on here, so I think I'll have to spare them. But like, it was, his performance it felt spiritual. Like it just was, I felt connected to something. You know, you were talking about Shia once.
LaBeouf.
Yeah. And this was obviously predated any of anything coming out that he had done that was really fucked up. But that he just felt maybe at times connected to something, like in his work or something.
Yeah.
I felt like Mark Rylance was totally connected. And like the whole production.
Yeah.
Here's a way to throw this to you. Are there things that you've watched that have changed you? You say watching movies is super important. So like, what are the ones that are impactful? And maybe for like an actor to watch that might be, or just for you.
Well, for this, I think it just depends on the project, I guess. But I watched Adventureland for this one.
Oh yeah.
And Whip It.
With
Whip It. The roller skating.
Yeah.
Is it called Whip It?
I think so.
Yeah, so good. Like, and I don't know. I kind of just go with my gut. Yeah. Oh, and I was watching Freaks and Geeks, so when Freaks and Geeks, Whip It, Adventureland, and I'll kind of just like follow a train of thought if I'm on a project and like a certain actor pops into my head, I'll be like, oh, I should watch that.
Yeah.
And I don't think about it too hard. And it usually, it's kind of like a fun exploration.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's and, like the tone or...
Yeah. Yeah, like tonally they're all kind of the same. And then right before this, I watched Green Room for a different project. Green Room, Certain Women, The Kids Are All Right. All those are pretty different, but it all made sense, I think.
Is the most recent project you just shot, is that released? Like, are you released in it, and like, is it like on deadline or something? Like, I wonder if we can reference it. The one you just came from.
Oh yeah. I think it's.
Let me make sure.
Oh yeah.
It is, right?
Oh my God, you have a line?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone can see. Yeah, you got the line too.
I have. So many.
Oh my God, you do.
But I guess maybe a lot of people have that.
It's all auditions, casting call.
Auditions.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna just make sure that you're. Yeah.
Oh.
Hell of a Summer.
Yes.
Okay, it's out. So yeah, it's the movie you just shot.
Yeah.
Hell of a Summer. Okay, so you were watching those movies.
Adventureland, Whip It. Freaks and Geeks.
Cool.
So good. All of them.
Do you know, that's funny, I do a similar so this thing that I'm just about to go on to, there's a scene, like I read it, even the audition, like sometimes you just have this weird gut impulse. Yeah. The voice, different, I don't know where it came from, but I kind of do, and there was like certain actors, I was like, oh, this reminds me of that person, or this movie, and there was this one scene, which I'll actually link to, that I think is one of the greatest bits of acting. It's a deleted scene from My Own Private Idaho with River Phoenix. Yeah. And he's sitting under a bridge with this other actress. Yeah. And they're talking about something, and I don't know if it was like improvised or half improvised or what. It was the most, I can't, in fact, I think, like, we'll cut this bit out, and like, I'll just like link to it. Yeah. I just want to show you it. It's so good.
Some fire for my smokable. I don't think I have.
No, I don't. I gotta send my mom a Christmas card. I keep putting it off.
Yeah, I haven't done that either.
Where's your mom?
She's in Idaho.
Really? I used to live in Montana.
Yeah. My cousin, he lives in Montana. Well, he used to. He just died, actually. He hit a tree going too fast. And then my brother tells me that that my grandma, well, my cousin Art's grandma too, that she just died. So that's 2 in a row.
Death usually comes in 3s.
It does. It does. It's funny you should say that, because my brother says shit like that all the time. He says things usually come in 3s. So right, my cousin dies, my grandma dies, and then right after that, her daughter dies. My aunt, she choked on a biscuit. So like within a year, and they were all women too. But in a year, it wasn't even a year, was it? No, it was more like 6 or 7 months, 5 months. Let's just say like in half a year, 3 women in my family died in that amount of time. You got a spider on your head here. Yeah. Yeah, they're dead now. Dead and gone. My brother used to say really weird shit like that all the time, though.
My grandma was real superstitious like that. One time I broke 3 mirrors off of this big vanity that she had, and she swore up and down I'd have bad luck for the next 21 years, 7 years apiece. So far she's been right.
She's right.
Wonder if it'll ever end.
My brother said some stupid shit, man. Stupid shit, like things come in 3s, money grows on trees. I don't drive Japanese, but he's right though. And the weird thing too is that my lucky number is 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Mine's 13.
9. I used to like 9 a lot, and before that I liked 5. But now it's 3. I don't know why, but...
Yeah. You know I like 13?
What?
You know why I like 13?
No.
Because the 13th letter of the alphabet is M. It stands for marijuana, you know. It's also supposed to be a bad luck number, you know. Bad luck is the story of my life, pretty much.
Yeah. That's cool. I don't mind 13. I think if I ever got bored of 3, I would just like put a 1 in front of the 3 and just like, then like both our favorite numbers, our lucky numbers would be 13. But then by then you'd probably be bored of 13, then you'd have 3. So it's like, we'll just like play musical
Switch
numbers.
off.
Yeah.
So what do you see when you see that? Like, what is going through your mind? Like, how are you watching that?
A lot of things.
Yeah.
I loved whatever she was doing. I loved what they were both doing. It felt like they were kind of talking. It felt like they were connected, but also totally like missing each other and just needing to like get their thoughts out at the other person, but like they were not actually responding or like you know what I mean? Yeah. But it still felt like I would watch them talk for like a whole movie, but like they weren't totally. Did you feel that?
Yeah, he'd be like, she'd say to me, yeah, my brother would say weird shit all the time. Like, yeah. And
probably that it seems like his brother and like those stories are important to him, so he just like needs to get it out with whoever he's talking to.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you're seeing it very much from the perspective of the characters, being like, this is what's important to the characters, and this is like their story, as opposed to like the acting technique of it, maybe.
Yeah, the technique felt. Was it all improv or not?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know how it couldn't be.
Right. I think he must have been improvising stuff like like when he said like, what is he saying, like he was thinking like something about my cousin. Well, my cousin's grandma. Like, it was probably just like my grandma, my cousin's grandma. Like, I bet he was sort of like adding little things.
And it felt kind of uncomfortable, like awkward, which I think is what is missing sometimes in most scenes. That it's just like a fluid back and forth, which is why that I think felt enjoyable and like real.
Yeah.
But are you thinking, when you watch it, what are you thinking?
You know, I only basically saw him.
Really?
Yeah, I was watching. Like, I thought she was, not that I didn't think she was good.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was just drawn to him.
Okay.
And it felt like I was so, I was, it's weird. I wasn't looking as much from the character of like, I was more just like, oh, what, like what's he doing as an actor? And it felt so improvisation. I also saw it when I was young, and I think I saw it and I like responded to it being so natural, like so improvisational. Yeah. And I'm like, he's so present in the space of what's really happening, because I feel like sometimes and I don't know if you feel like this, and I'm actually really curious to hear like what this makes you think of. Yeah. But well, for one, I know in auditions here I go rambling, but I'm gonna fuck it. In auditions sometimes you're sitting like and you're with the other person, and it's just the only thing that exists, and then you can remember, oh no, I'm in a train station, and so there's a lot of other stuff going on, and then I feel like he was so. Sometimes you have this what's going on in this scene on the page as written, but then it's like, oh shit, no, like we're actually in a space, and there's like you're wearing a bracelet or whatever, like things that are like not on the page. Like when he picked the spider. It's like, oh yeah, you get into the space, and it's like, okay, well that is now it all is real. So what do you have like thoughts? I suppose I don't want to direct it too much. Do you have thoughts on it, or like? Yeah,
I mean, on that scene, or like what you're saying
about being in the space and versus like page.
Yes, I think I think it's really clear to me when that's happening and when it's not. Like for me, I think. I don't know, not to get too specific, but like sometimes it'll feel much harder for me to like be super tuned into like the environment if it's a close-up shot or if I'm like really aware of the camera.
Okay.
In a way, like that felt so free because it like was just the two of them. They had space to like be. Does that make any sense?
Totally.
Or like if I'm walking in a scene and I can like really take in what's happening and like kind of forget about the fact that that we're like saying words.
Right.
That's when it feels. But there have been some times when I am aware of the camera and I can still do all that. But like, I think I'm letting myself recently. I'm allowing myself like to take in what's happening around me and not like hyper focus on getting the words out or like
I see.
taking direct. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you have a thing for when you are aware of the camera? Like, what does that feel like? And do you?
Yeah.
How do you work with that?
It'll just feel like kind of I'll like for a second feel kind of restricted or like more aware of my every movement, and then I just have to like kind of tell myself to snap out of it, and sometimes that doesn't work, but I think it's like just more of an anxiety when it's so on me, which I don't know if that I don't know what that means. Do you feel that at all?
Yeah, I think that's like I don't think that's a weird thing at all.
Yeah.
I wonder because I feel like everyone's got a different way of getting out of it and being like. I think some people are very much like I know Meisner technique for example is all like be super aware of the other person.
Yeah.
Or maybe some people are like will like be like, well, I just don't give a shit a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I just don't fucking care. Like I don't know. Like I just wondered if you had a thing like when you tell yourself to snap out of it. What is that?
I think I've had to do that a lot in life generally now, like, and it comes, I think it's I become like, or there are just certain habits or like spiraling things that will happen if I'm on set, and then I just have to tell myself like, no, don't be anxious about that, don't like assume what people are thinking, don't. And now that I know that like there's some anxiety around like if I see a camera, I can kind of cling to that. So it's literally just me telling myself like stop thinking like that.
Right.
And kind of the don't give a shit thing helps.
Yeah.
Not that I do always give a shit, but I'll just be like fuck it, that sort of thing. I'm like no, you know what helps? I pretend like this actually does really help me. I'll pretend like I'm 12 and like my family is in the room and I'm acting
for them.
Or like, like I'll think of if I'm feeling uncomfortable in a scene, I'll be like, what if I was saying this to my brother? And like, it would be like so much funnier and more carefree if. Does that? I feel like I'm not making sense.
I think it does. And are you saying the way? So there's a camera, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're saying if your brother was, if we were doing a scene and you were talking, if you were like, if I was your brother, how would you be saying this? Like,
or like, I guess if I'm like feeling anxious or really constricted, I'll be like, oh, this is actually what I'm doing right now, like being in a movie, being in a scene, it's all kind of funny and like fun and should be fun.
Right.
So I think that's why like if I imagine my family or like my close friends seeing this.
Oh, okay, well we're going on this one now. Great.
That is when I'm like reminded of this should just be fun and like less self-conscious and more like I'm just doing this fun thing.
Right.
Does that?
Yeah. Do you place your? I'm gonna be hyper specific as well. If you're cool with that. Do you place them in the room? Is that what you mean, or like do you mean like recounting this situation to your brother and be like, oh yeah, I was here?
A bit of both. I think it's less like, oh, the person in front of me, I'm now imagining like someone else. It's more like I'll find levity in like telling them about it later, or like. That sort of thing.
Like if you're like, oh, I was there, I was really anxious about this thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Or like, I think in general, I'll go back to like a mindset of being a kid and doing theater, and we all sort of did it together growing up. So I think in like this experimental theater troupe sort of thing. So I think that's what I like try to get at. Like that feeling of just, who gives a shit? This is fun and weird.
Right.
And I'm like, so I guess it's less specific. It's more of just like, I'll remind myself of all those things together.
Yeah. That's interesting. So going, it totally makes sense.
Yes.
And being like that child kind of spirit of it as well, being like, because a kid doesn't really care.
No.
Yeah.
And it is all just like the stakes are so low when you're a kid. Like, you're doing it because it's fun and you like get to hang out with friends and family and like that sort of thing. So I try to get back there.
Right. And that makes sense too, also from the context of like love and fear being kind of like motivated, the two kind of motivating factors that we can act from. I mean, I don't even mean like acting, I mean like just exist from. Yeah. And being like, well, one is fear and then one is love. And it's so easy to oscillate between them. Even like in this conversation, there's been moments where I'm like, I can feel the anxiety in my spine being like,
yes, totally.
Yeah, right.
Me too.
And then be like, no, just find love again.
Yes. Oh, I had a question. Oh, do you feel like you know when a scene is going well, or like when you're super connected, or do you kind of have to wait to hear like, oh, that went so well from other people, and then you're like, oh, yeah.
That's an interesting question. I don't think I have like a totally codified answer, but I feel like there are times. I've got a story about Brando, so I asked Brando the question of how do you know if it's working? It's a really funny answer. Yeah. But there's times like when it's weird to know when it's working. I just did this. The actress I was telling you about, I was doing the chemistry with her, and it was. There's been times where I feel high from acting because I feel very much like I'm. Like, it's not generally something that I'm doing. It's where I don't even know if this is true, but I'll just say it. But something between the two people, where it's like, oh, you're responding to each other and it's alive and it's what you're doing affects. It's like improvisational. Yeah. And that's fun to be seen by them and then to see them and to have it start to be between you. And then the other thing about like, I really try to not care about hearing good feedback, but it's also like, I was on a, like even, there was a project I was doing, and for whatever reason, the director just, I didn't hear anything from him ever, you know? And I was like, and it did weigh on me eventually. I was like, am I not acting? Like, do I not know how to act anymore? Is this not working and everything? And then I saw this stuff back later, and I was happy with it. But it's weird. And then when I was directing the play, Rick, like, he's a person who, in my life, I imagined he didn't need praise or affirmation. He's just like he seems like a confident and competent person, so I would direct attention elsewhere. And then I realized there was like a moment he was like, did that work? And I was like, oh, he just smashed that, and he didn't realize. So I think it is, from a directing perspective, helpful to be like, so what do you think? Are you like, how do you know it's working? And then do you feel like you're looking for affirmation?
Yes. I think I will like, I think it depends on the type of scene. I think I'll know that like something special is happening sometimes, and then other times like I think I am still in a place of like looking outwardly and waiting to hear if something worked, which I don't want to be. And I think with every experience it's different. Like some people will run up to you and like give you a slew of notes, good or bad, and then, or other people will say nothing. So I think it's like, I'm trying with each new thing to like not need anything and not be, because now I've had both experiences where it's like nothing is said, no notes are given, or there are notes, and I've kind of been okay with both outcomes.
Oh, you have been okay.
I think, just to some degree. So I'm like, I don't think there's one sort of direction that I'm more comfortable with. I think it's just I need to like have a compass, a better like tuned
for your own work?
Yes, okay. Yes, because it's not. How
so when you say you can feel like something special, but maybe even the question is the reason why we can't find an answer because our question is off. Maybe like what does working mean? You know, like maybe that's a result. And I'm not saying you asked a bad question. I just mean like I think about that as well. And it's like maybe Michael Shannon said this really interesting thing, which is like it's sort of irrelevant what the audience is seeing to him. Yeah, there's a moment that's happening between him and somebody else or whoever is there. Yeah. Influenced by the energy, whatever's around, and then however it comes across is sort of not his responsibility. So, do you like? What does that mean? What do you? What is working to you? Like, what are you trying to do, or like? What, do you have a goal? Like, is it all character dependent?
I think I don't. Well, what do you mean character? Like, if the character feels like it's working or like
is the thing you're trying to do be like, oh, I need to save my sister, or is it like I as an actor there's like an intention?
I guess I will know if it's working if it doesn't feel super forced or if it's like just kind of free and I do feel like I'm elsewhere for like a second.
Okay.
And that doesn't happen all the time. But I think those are the only times where I've known, like, oh, maybe it's working, because I don't feel like I'm here for a second when I'm in this scene. Mm-hmm. But then there have been other times when I have felt like for 3 weeks I've been doing the worst work of my life, and then, like, on the 4th week, someone will give me a compliment, and I'm like, oh, wow. And that does actually shift everything. So I don't want to be like that anymore. And I think I've grown a little bit from there, but it's a mixed bag up until this point of like, oh, I'm just confident in, like, I know that I did the best I could do, whether or not anyone says anything. Yeah. But it always does help a little bit when someone says something.
It does. Good. Yeah. And I think that's like a natural thing.
I think so. How could you not?
If someone gives you a compliment, it's just like, oh, you appreciate me.
Yes.
But it's also such a good point that like there's been times where I'm like, oh, that was bad, and then it was not bad, or you see it as like that was the take that worked best. Yeah. So maybe it's like just not worrying about if it's working, and then just be like, oh, that's fun, I enjoyed that, and because I feel like maybe, and there's another question in here somewhere which maybe I can excavate hopefully and deliver to you, but like and I've lost it in the excavation metaphor.
Was it?
It was about not knowing it's working, and then
character.
Do you feel like something about like what we were just talking about? Oh my god, I totally got
compliment.
Oh, I think it's kind of this exact phenomenon where it's like you have the thing that's on the paper, and then letting go maybe of expectations of how it should be, and what I feel like maybe like with that scene. Is like that couldn't have been scripted.
Yeah, it could not have been.
And like, is there an element of just? Do you find that you're doing what you set out to do when you read it, or do you find you're letting go and it's totally free, or is it an amalgamation?
I think, I feel like on the last 2 things I've worked on, there's been like a certain. Like I work with a coach before everything, and I have since I was like 14. And I think there's been like so I have a lot of work put in before I go there. And then something like, just things always feel different. Like when you actually arrive there and you meet the other person, or you're like in the costume, like everything. So I feel like I'm trying to be more open to that, because I used to be a lot more rigid. Like I would come with a fully formed idea of everything, of like how I was gonna say and like feel. Yeah. And now I feel a bit like I'm trying to let both things happen, where if I'm doing a scene that I've been rehearsing for weeks, is starting to feel different on the day, or like new reactions are coming up. I like try to let that happen while also holding on to other stuff.
Try to let it while holding on to other stuff
that I had like decided before about the character.
What would that stuff? What does that work? And you can be as specific as you're comfortable with.
Okay.
so you don't have to be hyper specific if it's uncomfortable, but like what would that work look like and the things that you're holding on to? Because I do think that sometimes there's a stigma, and I think it's worth sharing this. I've felt that there's a stigma towards preparation, where especially in America, where they're like, oh no, it's really natural, it's instinctual, you can't do the work, it's intellectual, you're getting in your head. Yeah. But like the actors that I tend to respect do a ton of work. Yeah. So what does that work look like?
Well, and that is a great question.
Nice.
Great thought. Because I do feel like there is that stigma, but then it's like if you actually watch most interviews with like I was just watching in Aubrey Plaza. Have you seen her new movie?
No.
I haven't either, but looks great. Emily, not Emily in Paris. Emily on the Run. I'm gonna look at.
I think I saw the trailer for that.
Yes, it looks so good. I've heard it's great. But I was watching an interview with her, and like she is someone that I would expect for whatever reason is totally like off the cuff, doing her thing. Isn't like into the training formality, like just her personality, it seems. And she said that she's like worked with the coach on everything ever that she's ever done.
I love that.
And for some reason, so I feel like the more there is the stigma for whatever reason, but the more I like actually look into it, it seems like a lot of actors like train or take class or like coach. Can you hear my stuffy nose?
No.
Okay.
I was deciding if I was going to make a joke. No, I can't hear it.
But the question was...
It's saying she's lying. She's never taken a class. It's so strange.
Yeah. But I feel like...
what the coaching looks like. What's the training? What's your work thing?
I think for me, it's like kind of helpful, like for however many days or weeks I have before, it'll just be like reading through it as many times as we can and finding little moments. It's not really like super rigid. I think it's more just getting comfortable with the script as a whole and like knowing where I am before this scene and like all of that, and it helps like just knowing in my body where I'm at, so when I'm actually filming it, it's like all there. Yeah. And not like, the night before I have to memorize this and like think about. Yeah. So I think it's just super helpful in that way. And then, and like knowing and having another opinion is sometimes helpful, I think. And then also like bringing my own, it's a sounding board, I think.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Like, yeah.
A lot of it's your ideas coming out, but just having someone bounce off of and talk to.
Yeah, and like having an outside perspective. But I also think maybe from the doing like that kind of fun, weird, like experimental theater as a kid, I think that is like where I'm at like my core who I am, but then I also value like a structure and like thinking about it more not like flippantly. So just a combo of those two aspects.
That's
I think.
That's cool. So you're going through it, you're saying, where have I come from, or where?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the other thing that someone told me recently was really interesting. Is like you're always. This is the thing about like inflating import or whatever, or like being like present in a scene, like that. There's certain buzzwords that people talk about all the time, like being present, and like what most of the time in life, you're not fully present. You're going somewhere else. You're thinking about the next thing. Like that's what, and it's like the awkward thing you were talking about, which I love. Is like shit's awkward all the time. Yeah. And generally when people are shooting, they're like looking each other in the eyes, and very comfortable, confident, and I'm like, I can't, like,
I'm always the most uncomfortable in those which I'm trying to get better at, because I'm gonna hopefully maybe play some characters who are like super confident. Right. But when that has happened in the past, I feel like a total phony baloney, because I don't feel. Well, no, there are different kinds of confident. Like, I think I can tap into a confidence that's like really confrontational and like that.
Yeah, Landline, right? I feel like does that feel accurate to that type of confidence?
Yes, totally. But then there's a confidence of like walking into a bar, like order me a drink, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
I'm
I
still uncomfortable with.
Yeah, that's kind of a tough one.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
Yeah.
Being like flirting.
I can't.
When I remember auditioning for things where I had to flirt, and I would never be more nervous because I'm like, they're gonna know if I'm good at flirting or not.
Yeah, I just had to do, it's like chemistry read over Zoom for my friend's project, and okay, well, I have questions post the story, but it was like the whole scene. No, we were doing a scene, but then they wanted like a minute of improv before the scene.
Yeah.
The scene was, we were at a party, there's supposed to be a little improv, we're in line for a bathroom, and like we're flirting. And it ended up being me saying, it was like, I said, you know, we were at the back of the line, I said, if we make this the front of the line and just poop and pee right here, then it'll be the front line. And it was like, why? After then I had the realization, like, sometimes improv doesn't need to be funny. I think I was like, I think it was supposed to be a nice, flirty, normal moment, but I like made it so weird. But how I would flirt, probably, but like, as the character, you know what I mean? Like, and then my question was, when you hear the word improv, do you automatically think, gotta be funny?
I just want to put on a clown nose. You know, just start.
Totally.
No, it's weird. First of all, to your credit,
Yeah.
I don't think, I think that would be...
The poop and pee?
Yeah, I think that's relatively natural for probably how you would talk to a bit of a stranger, who you felt comfortable with.
Yeah, totally.
So I wouldn't... But, okay, yes, but then I guess the question is, like, do you feel like it needs to be better when it's improvised?
Yeah.
Because when it's written, it's like, okay, well, these lines are on them, but this is on me.
Or, like, when you... Because there are also, like, dramatic movies that I know are totally improvised, or for the most part, and I love them so much. And then I feel like I have had moments of, like, oh, yeah, this is just a normal conversation that's improv, and then I misinterpret it as, like, oh, it needs to be so funny because because they're saying the word improv.
Right.
But I wish, and then it's always an immediate, like, regret.
Right, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I feel like it can be helpful improv in that, like, if I feel comfortable in what I'm doing, then the improv is helpful. Because what it allows me to do is be present to the other person and what's really happening, because it's something that I can then be taking cues off of the other person, or like what you're generally doing. Like, I feel like it helps me because you can really be present to the other person, because that's what you're taking the thing off of. You know what's weird? I just did a chemistry read on Zoom where they said do an improvised scene, you know, outside of this other character's work, and just try to get her number. And so it's like kind of flirty. And it was nice because I didn't feel like it had to be funny. I just felt like I had to try to get her number. And the nice thing was that it wasn't also, I didn't have to do it. They said to her, don't give him your number.
Oh.
So it didn't feel like I had to be great at it. I just felt like I had to do what I would do to, you know. Yeah. But that's a bit of a weird one because you're in line.
Oh, that improv?
And because you're talking, it's the bathroom's over there. And I guess if you're like, I know I'm trying to kind of flirt. Yeah.
I just felt like I was trying to be a clown.
Right.
Like the nose
because of the improv. Yeah.
And it just it got away from me. In a crazy way.
Oh, that's the funniest way to say it. Just got away from me.
It totally did. But do you feel like that, like, certain scenes, or I was talking to someone about this, like, and maybe it's just the nature of life, because, okay, so the thought is, like, if you're in a scene and you do it 5 times, and you're like, okay, that was good, and then 2 hours later, the meaning of the scene hits you. Yeah. And that happens all the time to me. And then it'll also happen in life. Like, oh, the perfect comeback comes to me hours later. Or like, what I should have said or done.
And generally it is we should poo and pee here. So you actually nailed it.
Spot. I nailed it, and then that, maybe nailing it is what feels uncomfortable sometimes.
So it comes to you later.
Yeah, like, do you think that's just human nature, or like the nature of nothing can ever be perfect, and like, or is it like, okay, maybe if there was less pressure on the scene going into it, the meaning would have come before, or is it just like, oh god, of course, it's just another way of like making it not like making it something to be anxious about.
Right, like retroactively anxious, just to like kind of masochistic.
Yes.
Maybe. Well, I find that thinking through it in advance of what you were saying with coaching, I feel like that's helpful because then it's like, okay, this is sort of things are coming to me now that, like doing that prep is nice because those things can sort of have time to, I don't know, you can fertilize those seeds of those ideas. But then also, I do feel like it's first of all, if it was in your subconscious and it came to you later, it was in your subconscious before as well, probably. So maybe it was there.
Okay.
And it's something actually I've noticed in audition scenes, self-tapes, because then I can watch it back, is that I'll feel something in a scene for doing a scene, I'll feel something, and be like, oh, I want to do it again and sort of explore that thing. And I'll watch it, and I'm like, it was always better the first time before I sort of leaned into it. And it was there by accident.
Yes.
And then also, it does bother me sometimes to think I could have done this differently, or something could have happened a different way, and either I learn from it and I'm like that helps me to feel like I've learned from it. If I'm like, okay, I've learned my lesson, then I can move on and apply it differently next time. Or something that's also helpful is to be like, I feel like I have developed a sort of spiritual belief around acting out of necessity for not beating myself up. So I'm like, okay, whatever that moment was how it had to be. It was almost like I didn't even have agency. And that helps me to be like, okay, like if I can if I can let it get away from me, then it just was whatever it needed to be. Like this, like if he, there's a million different ways you could probably play it. There's a million different meanings. But then if you have a good editor, then maybe they can find those little moments and piece it together. Like maybe our job is, I don't know. But it also, to ask you the same question, basically, how do you then deal with it in those moments where you're like, I could have done it differently? Or watching the movie a year later, like how do you feel better about yourself, basically? Because it's tough.
It's tough. I think I just get to a point of like, I have to forget about it. I don't know if I ever find total resolve, but like usually there will be like a period of hyper fixation on it, or like a moment, so much so that like I'll be talking to someone and then have to be like, hold on, and then I'll just sort of look off into space and replay it in my head. That's lasted like a couple days, and then it'll just kind of fade away.
Is it one moment that will last for a couple days?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be like a scene.
Oh, really?
Or like, and it nearly happens on every project. So I don't know if that's just my little way of like holding on to it.
Oh yeah, maybe.
It could be like a sweet thing, but I don't think I'm trying not, and I think I'm trying to get to a place of like, things can just, kind of the happy thing that you were saying, like you don't just see characters sometimes who are happy and like praised for it. I think I'm in my own brain trying to like make it okay that things can just be like good and anxiety free and like not so weighted in negativity, because I think I have that with work sometimes, with acting, and I think that's just how I like am wired sometimes.
I can totally identify with that in even just in life, being like, I feel like, and here's the trick I think that my brain plays on me is I call it my shadow.
I've heard of
Jungian sort of shadow stuff, and it's the part of me that's like, I recognize that it tries to stay relevant in my brain and in control by telling me these different things that it like the fears is how it stays relevant, right? So it's like, oh, you should have done it this way, you should have done it that way, or this is bad or that's bad. And then accepting that just and I feel like it's weird because it feels rational or logical.
Yes.
But it's almost like that's a tool, and then there's the other side of one's own like possible experience, which is just being it's okay and like happy.
Yes.
And that's not less rational or relevant or legitimate.
Yes.
But it's being like, yeah, I can just live from that.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I think in a lot, and we were saying in acting where it's like coming from two different places, where it's like fear or love, it's like maybe it's better if it's just coming from the love of doing it. Like when you touch back into your childhood self at 12, that's love, I would imagine.
I think so. Maybe, yeah, I know, I think so.
I was terrified at 12.
I'm sure it was like, but much less so than I am now, or like post being a kid. I think I was I probably was like to some degree anxious, but yeah, like what you're saying, it was a totally, I think it was coming from love and like fun and free.
That's so interesting. I'm gonna think back to now. I just remembered a childhood play that I did, and I've never even really recollected. I'm gonna take time to. It was Oklahoma. I was thinking Judd.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
The car breaks. That's like.
Never been so.
Wait, you were 12?
Yeah, I mean, we were in grade 6. Actually, I want to give a shout out to Miss Van Slyke.
Yeah.
I've planned on giving so many shout outs to Miss Van Slyke throughout my.
Was she the director?
She was the director. She was just phenomenal because she cared so much that imagine the cool kids in grade 6 being the kids who were in the play. That's just completely insane.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's just like a contradiction by nature. And she cared so much about it. We rehearsed for like 3 hours after school every day. God. And she just cared. It was really good. And she just really cared. And I feel like there's a part of like, I don't know what influence it had on me, but I feel like it had one. But and it was just, it was fun. And I'm curious, what was I didn't even really know about this experimental theater thing you did. What was it? I think it's worth diving into because you're drawing from it.
Yeah. I was just going to give a shout out to Sally and Kim.
Okay. Sally and Kim.
Of Mudbutts Theater Troupe, which is what I'm referring to. But
every improv that I ever do.
Well, no, Mudbutts is the name.
No, I know. Okay.
But I always bring it back to Mudbutts movie. But shout out to Sally and Kim and everyone. Now I'm gonna hone it in. Okay, so we did.
Shout out to everybody.
We did. It was in Telluride, Colorado. Have you been?
No.
Okay, so. It was in Telluride. My family used to go every summer and winter, and like for 3 weeks in August, which is maybe why it's one of my favorite. What's your favorite month?
I feel like August could be it, but that's my birthday month. Late.
August 31st.
August 29th.
Oh, I thought your birthday was August 31st.
Oh, well, to be fair, to make you feel better, I thought your birthday was August 31st, and that's why you were saying that. So, there you go.
No, mine's April 14th.
April 14th, okay.
But
I should have known. You're such an April 14th.
You think?
Yeah, because you're in April. I feel like you're definitely in April. You know what I mean? Like the springtime energy.
Do you mean it? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think you probably have springtime energy.
Okay, I think you totally have a late August. Or,
yeah, late August.
Yeah. August 29th.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 weeks in August. You should come to my birthday
party. It's not on August 29th.
September 1st.
Yes.
I'll be there.
Oh, cool.
Where is it?
I don't know.
Okay.
But do you know what's funny? So I did this is super relevant. I did a poll on close friends. Be like, do I come to the party with yes and no?
Yeah. Who voted?
And someone voted no.
No.
And I'm like, why? What's the rationale? Well, at first it was my brother. I'm like, that's funny. I get it. He's like accidentally like pretending to be gay.
Yeah.
And like, but then I was just thinking about like,
what?
Why vote no if you don't want to?
Why?
Come? Just ignore. But you know what? Here's me, like right on the precipice of love and fear,
right?
And I'm not trying to give into that, but I'm kind of like, what are you thinking?
Why? Is it more like, oh no, now whoever votes is gonna see that like there's a percentage of people who don't want to come?
It was the rationale of the person voting no to not just ignore it. And
Which is your brother?
No, it wasn't. It was like a person I don't really. It's like a friend or whatever, But I realize now maybe it was like an RSVP. I can't come. Maybe.
Yeah.
See this, and here's actually this train of thought is exactly why I can skew into like a bad place because and now I realize I'm assuming something bad.
Yes.
Whereas it could have just been like I took it personally. Yeah. Everyone should read the book, The Four Agreements, because it talks about never take it personally, don't make assumptions. Yeah. And maybe it's this person should be like, oh, I can't come. Clicks like they probably don't care about my birthday as much as I do.
Right.
And if they don't, fuck them. But
and they're off the close friends. I think Are they now?
No.
Okay, well, you kept them.
I'll cut this, but
okay,
yeah, they are.
Off the
I fucking cut them immediately.
Yeah, no. You should.
I could, but that was me assuming that they chose to tell me they didn't want to come for my birthday, which just felt like schoolyard bullying.
You know what I think? It's something that I have to remind myself of all the time, is like people just say shit and people just do shit. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time it doesn't have to do. And I know that because sometimes I will just say and do shit and it doesn't have to really do with other people, or like I will accidentally click on someone's poll and then the time that it would take to explain, like, oh my god, I didn't actually mean that about your dog. I just let it go.
I don't think you should put your dog down.
Yeah, like, it'll be something, but that has happened so many times. Or, like, I'm busy and don't scroll through everyone's story, like, every single story. But then if that were to happen to me, I'd create a whole narrative of, like, that person does not care about me. Yeah. Then sometimes that's true.
What's that?
Like, sometimes the negative things are true, but then sometimes, it's like, is that really worth then, like, thinking, like, harping on it for so long?
That's exactly right, because it's like, be happy. Because what's the point? Like, Michael Tyson said this really interesting thing, a pugilist from back in the day. Yeah. He's like, if someone can, if you get worked up by somebody else, they own you.
Oh my god.
And like, that's such a Mike Tyson way to say it, but basically it's cool to be like, they control your emotions, and hopefully you can aspire to like an emotional, like existential freedom where you have agency over your own state, which I think is possible if you frame your mentality right. Which, like, I feel like there's a connection here to acting, which I'm not seeing. Here's a question. Do you think you're better? Do you genuinely think I'm sure you've thought both sides of this. Mm-hmm. You're better when you not care less, but are just more let go? Or do you think sometimes really, really putting your head to the grindstone and caring a lot? Yeah. Like, do you think the suffering makes it better?
It's tricky because I don't feel like I know. Because there have been some experiences that I feel like have been pretty painful, or like just what we're talking about, like a lot of overthinking and anxiety, and then it turns out okay. But I don't know if that's because maybe it would have been okay if I had gone home every night and not felt badly. Yeah. It could have, but I guess I just don't know.
Have you done stuff where you're just kind of happy that you really like?
There have been a few. And those have all felt like kind of, like I'm really prepped beforehand, and then also I just get there and I'm like tapped into something, and it's super, not easy, but like I'm almost not thinking, and it's just happening.
Do you have a process for tapping in? Do you have a ritual? Do you have anything that helps you? And like, once you're there in that flow of staying there?
Okay, there are many things. Okay, part of the tapping in that happens, I just need to remind myself, like, to not be embarrassed or, like, closed off. Because I think I can get, when I, like, shut down, that's kind of when things get, like, it's like I will be more tapped in if the internal monologue is stay open and like don't make it weird by shutting down. Yeah. And like closing yourself off.
How do you mean shutting down? Closing from other people?
Yeah. Or like being embarrassed about a performance, or like just, does that make sense? Like, That's one thing that just generally like will help me to stay in a moment, or like in a scene, and not feel anxious or like self-conscious. And then other tapping in, I think it's just different. It'll be like sometimes music, sometimes finding like something in a room that sometimes being outside. I really love outdoor scenes. Right. It feels like I can really tap in. or like sometimes it's an image of a movie that I've seen. It feels sort of like my mind is like a room with all these floating things and like sounds, and I'm just kind of grabbing.
Right. When you're open.
When I'm open.
And is that when specifically you're outside, or anytime you're open, it feels like you're in this open room where you're...
Anytime.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like a feeling of trusting the gut. Like I'll know my gut, not the gut. Knowing which movies to watch.
Yeah, the same, yeah.
Yeah, or like which actors I'm suddenly drawn to when I'm working on something new. So I'll be moments before a scene, and I'm like, oh, which thing in this room feels right? Or what sound or like lyric makes sense for this moment? And then I'll think about that.
You'll think about it.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So you're not thinking about the scene. Do you ever think about like this scene? Or is it like, okay, I've prepped it enough and I'm going to just think of something sort of tangential?
I think it's different for everything, I guess. Like, I will think about the scene, but then I also think I get to a place of like, okay, I know what the scene's about, and then I'm just like focused on trying to connect with the other person too.
Right. In like before the scene, potentially?
I guess before and after. How do you feel like that's important? Like, or I guess we were just talking about this, but have there been moments when you are just not connecting to someone at all, like off screen, and then you have to? Do you feel like that impacts the final product, or could it be like no one would have known that we weren't close?
I like to be close. I like to, and because I like to feel open. I like to trust them. I like to feel open. I like to feel that trust for people. I think maybe that's just a natural proclivity in life as well. If I'm like not as, like I need to maybe trust someone a little bit to be. Or I just like to have a real shared history with someone, because then it's like a real conversation. Plus you know what it's like to talk to somebody. Like if we were doing a scene, like we would basically know, like, I mean, I guess it's different for different characters, but I just like to have comfortability. I don't know if I know it affects the way I feel in scenes. I don't know if it affects the final product. Sometimes I think it might affect the final product, but then at that point, it's kind of one of those things, just like you did what you can. You tried, and sometimes, and here's the other thing, sometimes I know other actors won't want to, like that will be what frees them, is to be like, I don't really want to know you, or I'm my character, and this is a different thing.
Have you been in a situation where you feel like the lines are or like you are getting close to this person offset, but you really are kind of still your character, and like, does that make sense? Like kind of bringing it home, or your relationship outside of the scene and the characters kind of mimics the relationship in it.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it's a conscious choice, or it feels subconscious maybe, like because the dynamic, I feel like the nice thing, or I mean I guess it can be nice and it can not be, but is that I feel like generally people want to feel that dynamic in life. So like what your characters are, I feel like both people kind of are predisposed to step into those roles in their like offset relationship. Even in fact, I was shooting a movie with my dad where he was playing my dad, but the dynamic was super different, and so we were that not like normal like Dempsey and Greg. It was like the characters.
Wow.
But I do definitely feel like it bleeds. Do you?
I think sometimes, and then other times like I have maybe not felt like it was super like flowing super well off camera, but then it's still like we're still able to do it, and in the scene, and just like not even like romantic scenes or stuff, but just like any sort of relationship or scene between two people, I think can still work even if you're not super connected off. It's kind of like but then sometimes like if you have like if you're now in a scene and you have so many feelings whichever way towards this other person, it must add some kind of color.
I think so.
It's gotta.
And even there was scenes where there was a whole project where I was supposed to basically have an antagonistic relationship with someone where we weren't that close, and I found it helpful to be close still, and there was times when I wasn't, and then times when I was, and it worked way better when I was close, because then what they say can impact you. It can. I just had a sort of. I'm having one of those moments where I'm thinking something else that's unrelated to this.
What is it?
It's actually to do with the character.
Okay.
It's sort of like energy placement.
Yeah.
Like where I feel something different
where?
somewhere else. Do you ever feel anxious to say, to talk
Totally. And you don't have to.
No,
I don't talk about it.
But also, it's weird because it's so weird because, these conversations, which I think are super valuable, I also sometimes, part of my anxiety in this conversation was, am I asking too much, of something?
Yeah.
But what a weird thing to feel like we have to hide our because that's fear, right? Isn't that
think
just
it's fear? But I feel similar to you. I sometimes will... I feel pretty private about some things, or especially with acting stuff. I don't really talk about it. But then I get excited too with friends and stuff in but I feel an anxiety around oh my god, did I just say? But then who?
That's exactly
saying too much or saying.
But I think that's got to be bullshit, right? Not to call you out, to call myself out, because there's always something to be anxious about. I could get the biggest compliment in the world or something something could happen that's meaningful to me, and then 20 minutes later I'd be anxious that it's gone away.
Yes.
Because there's no to that side of the brain. There's no permanence. You know, it's just it is what it is. And I feel like you were talking earlier about being able to just kind of be in that flow, and I feel like being able to understand yourself in life is helpful there. I like journaling in this. I'm just throwing this to the people because it's if you can exist in that place where you kind of know what you're scared of, you can understand yourself, then you can let go of those anxieties as they come up, and it's just interesting. It's also interesting because everything I've ever seen you do has been incredible. It's really, and what's funny too is you were talking earlier about all the prep, and it's you're such, I feel and it's cool to hear and to see because, and to be able to relate your process to how it comes across, because it feels so present and spontaneous, and I think pardon?
Thank you.
I think it's you. No, I knew it. Thank you, but it's
you never know what to say.
Yeah.
Do you, okay.
No, it's and it's weird because sometimes I feel I'll withhold compliments from people because people are can be uncomfortable taking them. Mm-hmm. But fuck it, I think it is important, and also it's funny but it does track what you're saying about having the prep, but then you're sort of saying coming in and being in that sort of camp mode or whatever.
Yes.
It's which is just interesting. I just wanted to highlight it to people who that's you as an actor. It very much doesn't feel like you've got set things of how you're gonna play it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Does that feel accurate to you?
I think the times when it's felt the most set are the times when I feel the least like the character, or why was I cast in this? And then I'll really cling to those because it feels really far from I don't feel like I can trust what's coming up in the moment.
Right.
So I don't particularly enjoy those as much when I can't then just also infuse myself or my own thoughts. Right. Which I don't know if that's right or wrong, but so far I've enjoyed the things the most where I feel like I can listen to the voice in my head about a scene or a character. Right,
when you're in that space. I guess that's the thing, is finding that open room where you're in a place where you can start to free associate and pull.
Yes.
And then, I get it. If you don't feel like you can do that, then you're well, where else would I be pulling from?
Yeah, I have to know exactly what I'm doing.
That's interesting.
I don't know.
I wonder why. So have you gotten the roles, and when you got them, why did I get that? Has it been things you've auditioned for, or things you've been offered?
I don't think it hasn't happened a ton, but there have been a few things where I'm I don't know how this happened, and maybe that's just maybe that was my fear of being oh, this is something that scares me and I have to make up a reason for like why it's so scary, and it's because I wasn't supposed to get that sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But there haven't been a whole lot. I feel like there have been like one or two things where I feel like not super right for it, and I just have to make it work. And I think it did eventually, but it didn't feel like it was just much more rigid, I think.
It's such an interesting thing. Our whole radar is basically emotional. As like an actor, to be like, this feels good, it feels like it's working, it feels like it's not. And then but it also is like, we can't, on one hand we have to entirely trust our feelings, but on the other we can't at all, because we don't really know how it is coming across.
Yes.
Nor should we.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing, because you're like, yeah, it's fine. Maybe it's like trusting, I don't know, it feels like maybe it's something to do with acceptance, like accepting your gut, but then also just accepting that it sort of is what it is. And I wonder if maybe like whatever we feel doesn't really matter, you know?
Yeah.
Like if it was
probably but then I think to some degree it must, because then it's like, well, if you're not listening to yourself at all, then could anyone do that? Like, what then are you bringing? Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you're listening to, I think I might not have explained it. Like,
okay.
See, here's the thing: I don't even really know what I'm saying.
Sure. No, but it did. I think I know what
like you're trusting your gut, but then also not too worried about it.
Yeah.
In a way where it's like, okay, well, like let's say, maybe it's like a faith thing. I don't mean like religious. I mean like faith in that it will work out. Where it's like, okay, I could feel anxious, or I could feel happy, or I could feel sad or scared or whatever, but it's gonna be okay anyway.
Yeah.
So then it's kind of like, okay, well, you might as well probably feel happy if you think it's gonna be just as good.
Yes.
Either way.
Which like emotion do you feel least, or feels like the least comfortable and like fluid to you in a scene? Like a fight, or like an emotional scene, or a fun, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I know. Yeah, I totally know what you mean, and it actually kind of leads me as well to a question that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Something that I watched Landline like years ago. I don't know if you remember this. But I was so blown away, because I'd never. It was weird. We had been friends for a long time, I think, before I had seen it, and I'd never seen you act except for like 2 seconds on set. And I don't even remember what that was the weirdest experience anyway.
Yeah.
That was a strange experience. And that's a whole story.
That was so long ago. I was looking in my email, because I didn't know, it was like 2016.
Was it?
It was 13 years ago. 13 years. But it's a long time.
That is a long time. That's
like,
wild.
God,
yeah.
I don't even have pictures on my phone.
From 2000. Yeah, I don't have a phone from there.
Your phone's all the way over there. Mine.
I don't think they had phones back then.
No. That's why I had to go through my email.
Yeah.
Because I got that job via computer.
I had like an email, but it wasn't electronic.
Yeah.
It was just like an energetic, like mail, like someone would run up with the mail, being very energetic and hand it to me. Yeah, that's how I knew. Like, I didn't get the part, by the way. I just showed up.
Really?
And I was walking by.
Really?
Yeah. Do you ever walk by on a street and be like someone shooting?
Yeah.
Or I'd be like, oh, I kind of hope they just like
totally
pick me up.
Did you ever have that thought as a kid, like, I'm gonna get discovered?
I had no aspirations to be an actor as a kid, so I had the thought that I was gonna get discovered by a kidnapper. That was my fear, actually.
Wait,
and it almost
so
happened
you
like
had
4
a fear?
times. Yeah.
Because I asked everyone on set, I think, if they had a fear of being kidnapped.
And then they did. They're like, this fucking girl's gonna kidnap us.
They're like, not until now. No one could really relate.
That's such a weird. You should be scared of that. Like, you should be.
I don't want to.
Not you. I mean, like,
7, 8.
Is it really 8? Do you have to knock 8 times?
It's gotta be even.
Oh, really? So you chose 8, not 2, 4, 6.
It has to be even and long enough for it to count.
Okay.
Just a 1, 2. Or sometimes the knocks get away from me.
And then you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Like I've already reached 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like, this could either be really bad or really good. Like, I could have just saved myself or really kind of condemned myself.
Totally.
So, to answer your earlier question, how about to ask you a question that might clarify that? What was it?
The emotion.
Oh, yeah.
Which emotion?
Yeah. So and it will lead me to Landline. So when I think at the beginning, like I would really, and I think a lot of people do this, would really fetishize like crying, like emotion, and tears and anger and all that. And I think what's best is when it's in flow. Like I just don't think there's really a requirement for that in the way that I thought there was, or I think that people thought there was, or maybe perhaps still think. I know some people do think that way. And a lot, and so it would be like a lot of like getting yourself to that place and getting, and I realized like I think a lot of where that came from was wanting to be impressive and wanting to be like good. And most of the actors that I really respond to, performers that I respond to, it's about like presence and the power of one's like will to do the thing that they're doing, or at least that's what I'm interpreting it as. And so I feel like just being in flow and not worrying too much about that outcome is, so it's not really that there's one emotion that I feel like is easier, but it's just like the idea of not really feeling like it's required in a way. But and then I watched Landline, and I don't think that really answered your question. I'm gonna think on that and see if I can. It was, which one was difficult,
or like which? I think that did though. Like which feels maybe the least fluid or like stuck sometimes. Like which kind of scene?
Which kind of scene? In a weird way, I don't really know if I'm thinking about the well. I definitely do think, like, if the scene is, like, intense or, like, emotional or something, I sort of know, and there'll be times when this is, I think, maybe worth noting. There was a time when my target, what I thought was, for a long time, like, the whole beginning of acting, I was like, okay, this is the target. You're bubbling over with emotion, you're super connected, and whatever. And it happened recently, like, I basically, like, do you ever feel like you exactly hit the target of what you wanted to do?
Sometimes.
And it was interesting because it was also, it totally was was the same period. It was almost it was personal in a way. Like I walked onto set sort of feeling that way for a different reason.
Okay.
And then it was that, and then so watching it back, I was like, I knew when I finished, like, that's interesting. 'Cause I feel like I hit the target. What's it gonna be like when I watch it back? Is it gonna? Have I been aiming wrong the whole time? And what was interesting was that when I saw the scene, and the editors, it was an ADR, and I really trust the editors. They did really cool stuff with it. And none of the moments that they chose were the moments where it broke or bubbled over or whatever, but it was the other moments, it was present. But so I realized, like, it's fine to be full of an emotion or full of experience, and like, but then you don't necessarily have the requirement to have it do the thing that you think is impressive. Or that was just me. So what I wanted to ask you about Landline is because what I saw in that, and I'm projecting, was like, I didn't think you really necessarily felt the need to over dramatize a whole bunch, and like you had that presence of, and like the, it felt like you were doing what you were doing without necessarily needing to feel like you had all these, like, were trying to be too impressive in a way. And not that it wasn't impressive, what I mean is that it didn't feel like you were pushing at those things. And I wonder if that tracks for you, and if you've had experiences like that, why you might feel like that.
I think for that specifically, it was like one of the first things I'd ever done, or like the biggest role I'd ever had, and in that I'd never like done a movie like that before. And I think part of it, like, I didn't have an awareness of what it was like to be on a set, who people were on a set. I didn't know that there was like very little looking for external stuff in a way that I like what we were talking about earlier, kind of want to get back to. But I think it's hard, or it's much harder once you know what sets are like, and that sometimes, just everything. But I felt very much like really not looking for anything, and I kind of knew what I was there to do, and I felt really like, I think that character felt like me 5 years, not totally, but like tapping into a really confrontational, like grounded thing that I don't think I walk around with all the time, so it felt like I could just be really solid and like grounded. And yeah, but I think a big part of it was that I was just like 19 and totally unaware of like what was happening around me. So I think that's part of it. Like when I reflect on it about that whole experience, I think it was like really special kind of for that, because I was just doing it and wasn't really second guessing anything, wasn't looking for anything, because I didn't know who I was even talking to on set. So in a way that like now I feel like it's a thing like you have to be, just more pressure I feel like accumulates, which I don't want to have anymore, but I think it's kind of just happens when you work on, do you know what I mean? Like,
well, is it the scale of the projects, or the fact that you've just been on enough that there's something expected of you?
I guess it's more like sometimes it can become more about like the or like what we were saying earlier, like external validation, and more like less about acting and more about other things that like happen on a set or happen. I don't know how to really articulate, but there was just like a complete lack of awareness for other things other than like acting.
Right.
But I feel like I've now seen other dynamics on other sets that have like made me more aware of the like seeking outward or just like knowing about.
Do you mean even like the sort of the political side of like or just like the who's got power, influence? Like,
kind of yeah, like more like that, I guess. Or and also that experience, like Gillian, who directed it, was kind of, from my recollection, like really just let people do their thing and wasn't like super like giving a bunch of notes and all. It was just kind of a relaxed environment. I don't know if she felt relaxed, but like that is, for the actors, I felt like it was like that. So there just wasn't many. We would just do the scenes and that was it. And then like I didn't even know how films. I didn't leave that being like, oh, I wonder when it'll be edited. I didn't know what, or like when's it gonna come out. Yeah, I just kind of left and moved out. It was just such a. I was only thinking about the acting.
Right.
And
I wonder, do you think you can do that still? Like, or do you think it's an impossibility?
No, I think it's almost like growing up, like when you have, you have experiences, you have like a relationship. Yeah, like I think you have a relationship and then that impacts, you like are more aware of dynamics and who you are, and or you have friendships, or you go to a new place, like you kind of bring everything with you. Yeah. So I think it's not impossible. I think it's more of just like a thing now, and I think I've done it the last year more than I have in the past, about just like trying to let go of needing other things other than like, I just kind of want to be here and act and have fun with this person and not like be thinking about a million other things that don't actually matter.
Yeah.
For the project.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense as well. And like, it's weird again because there's like that balance of career and craft.
Yeah.
And it's maybe leaning more heavily into craft.
I guess so, but then it is. Yeah, I think that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And some people are good at doing both, and I don't know if not that I'm not good at, but the other side has always felt more uncomfortable to me, like forcing a connection with someone, or like, it always has just felt a little bit like what it's not supposed to be about.
Yeah.
But then you hear that that's important, and some people are so good at it and at balancing. You know what I mean?
I do know exactly what you mean, and sometimes that is the weird thing about being like with like a producer or something, and being like, you should be friends with that person. You hear that, it's like, oh, that's an important. Oh, this person's coming to set today.
Yes.
And it's okay. Maybe it is important, but it does just feel weirder. It's like, and my hope, and I believe this is true. My belief is that if you do the work, that it comes down to the work more than anything else.
I would agree. Yes.
And that's what I hope. That's what I really hope.
And I think that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Me too.
Me
too. And so it's like fun. Yeah. Go out and be. Because I hear people like, oh, they're going for lunch with casting directors. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How would they even? That's so weird. I'm like, I've never done that.
I've never done that.
I once tried to become a reader for a casting director.
That sounds fun. Because Phyllis.
Who?
Phyllis from The Office was a reader.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
You watched I
know Phyllis. I love The Office, but I didn't know that she was a reader.
She was a reader.
Yeah.
And then they cast her.
Oh, that's pretty cool. In fact, I've heard my friends do that. I really just wanted to see what was on the other side of an audition, especially at the beginning where I was like, I just want to know, like, what is it like? And this actually is something that I want to ask you about, a continuation of the Landline thing. But I was like, what is it like to see an actor come in and they're like, they all make the same choice and all this, and I have friends in casting, and I was like, wow. Yeah. So, but it does feel like there's certain things that are valued in like actors, and a lot of it feels like being some of the pitfalls maybe are like that you can get. And again, this kind of feels like career over craft, where it's like something other than the intention of the scene or just being how you'd be or doing what you do is like wanting to be impressive or wanting to do this thing or wanting, and I feel like, and again, I'm projecting here, so I don't know, just tell me if you think it's accurate or not, but I feel like in my experience of your acting, you're not falling into those, and even in life, like even in the way it seems like you navigate just socially and like not falling into the pitfalls in LA, not falling into the pitfalls of like, or like the acting pitfalls. And I wonder if there's something you're orienting yourself around when you're acting, or just or not feeling like beholden to do the things that other people or even that other people are doing, or even seeing the pitfall. Do you see the pitfalls that other actors are falling into?
I don't know if I see the pitfall. Like, I can't think of anything specifically that I've seen that I like tried to not do. I feel like generally I try to like, I actually don't totally know. I just think maybe let me think.
For sure, and I'll talk. Oh yeah, we could totally cut it.
Oh, but you
and I'll even just clarify
yeah.
that, like, for example, I'll be like hyper specific. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching an actor trying to cry. And I'm like, or you're going in and you're being really vulnerable, and how sad you are. Not you, like that actor is, and I'm like, that's not really what's required. Maybe.
Yes. Okay, well, on crying specifically, I feel like I've only. I worked with someone who is amazing and just, incredibly talented and like successful and everything.
Thank you.
And it was that.
It was a Black Mirror. It was a scene at that fucking campfire.
And I remember you telling me that when you see.
This is what this person told me.
Yes, when they see like that that on the page, it's like and tears fall.
Right.
She was like, I think fuck that. Yeah. If that happens, that happens. But like, chances are it's not gonna happen, and I'm gonna do. And then hearing that person, I think about that all the time. I feel like it's another one of those untold things that actors do. Like, a lot of actors do coach, but you don't really know about it, or there's a stigma.
Yeah, weird.
Or it's like assumed that every actor is trying to cry, or like wants to cry on command, and that's the epitome of it. But I've heard from like now several people that they actually think it's bullshit, and it doesn't actually really matter if you can cry, or and if it happens, it's great. It's not bad, but it's like to force it.
It just feels like you're missing the mark. Like it feels like your intention is not it feels like either it's, now this is again me projecting, but it's either someone trying to be impressive, maybe, or it's an accident, which feels legitimate, or it's like I said, like I really respond to people who I feel like are tapped into something and are like trying to just stepping into their own power, and being like, I'm going to affect change in this other person for the way that I see is best. And those people, I think, are like, if you look at like Tom Hardy, there's this great scene where he's talking about it's in Revenant, and he's talking to this other guy about like eating a squirrel or something, and I'm like, but it just looked like something was coming through him. But like a lot of Tom Hardy seems to be like that, or like a lot of actors, like they're really not about themselves, it's about this other person. and so it feels like if you're trying to stimulate yourself in that way, so you're crying, like you're trying to do something for yourself as opposed to for the other person.
Who are your, and then I'll get back to that, but like who are the actors right now that you feel like you love?
Yeah, I love Tom Hardy. I love Mark Rylance now after seeing that play. I love Ryan. I've always loved Ryan Gosling. I'm trying to think who else. There's people who are who've been popping up recently who I really like. I like Aaron Taylor Johnson. I just saw him last night in
so good.
Bullet Train.
Yes.
Yeah. I wish I shouldn't have done this, but I fell asleep halfway through it.
You did.
Because I took a CBD drink.
Oh.
And it was a really long day.
Was it Vibe?
It was.
That?
No. Wait. Oh, it was Trip.
Trip?
Yeah.
With a Y?
No.
Treat.
With the I've seen Vibe. I was at Air One, and they had
yes.
a million.
Yeah.
And but so then I fell asleep. I woke and I was loving it, and I felt myself falling asleep. I was like, this sucks. And then I was asleep, and I woke up and I left. I'm gonna go back and watch it tonight or something. I didn't want to spoil it. What
part did you fall asleep at?
I don't remember.
Okay, but you remember him.
He's great.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like Chris Pine a lot. I really like.
Great.
Yeah, I love Chris Pine and Ben Foster, both Hell or High Water. Frances McDormand. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Who?
Wait. She's that Jeff Bridges is in that movie.
In which movie?
Hell or High Water.
Oh my god. Yeah.
That's such a good movie.
And Frances McDormand. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other
Three
people.
Billboards.
Yeah, 3 Billboards. It's weird. I feel like okay. Well, I think I have writers that I've really gotten into more so than actors in a weird like Taylor Sheridan, who did Hell or High Water. Yeah. Martin McDonough and a bunch of people. But how about you? Do you have actors that you have right now who you're like, oh, that's the thing?
Frances.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Annette Bening. Kind of the whole cast of 20th Century Women. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh my god.
Who's in it?
So good. It's Annette Bening, Greta Gerwig, Elle Fanning, Billy Crudup.
Oh, interesting.
And I know I'm forgetting someone. It's like so good.
Yeah.
And it's a Mike Mills movie, who I don't really have like favorite directors or writer. I don't feel like I track those things well, but then I watched you seen the movie Beginners?
No.
It's another Mike Mills. I think that's the right name, but it's another one of his movies, and I watched it without knowing that and was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. So I think I do have taste that like makes but I've just never
clocked it.
Yes.
But you have it, but it's just not something you're conscious of.
Annette Bening, Frances, Judy Greer, Christopher Abbott.
I don't know who that is.
You don't?
No.
He was in Girls and this movie Black Bear.
I've not seen Black Bear.
I'm gonna pull up a picture.
Okay, cool.
Let me see. Those are just some right now.
The thing I love about Frances McDormand is it feels like she embodies that thing of not caring what people think. But I'm sure she does. In fact, she's talked about it.
Has she?
Yeah.
Really?
Maybe it was in her acceptance speech or something.
This guy? If you can see.
No, I don't know that guy.
No, I think you'd love him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Wait, what did she?
I think she was saying she's got anxiety like everybody or whatever.
Okay.
But it's just she's so good at, I don't know, putting that aside and just being powerful. And I think that comes to me. I'm totally projecting, but it's coming from. It seems like it's coming from doing the thing that having integrity, doing what she wants to do or feels is right without really worrying how somebody else is interpreting it.
Yeah.
And
it seems like she does that in life, although I don't know her. But it does seem like.
I think so, but I saw her once in a place in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And me and Colin were there, and we were sort of. I really wanted to. I don't know why. I just wanted to talk. I don't know. I just wanted to say thank you. Really.
She tall?
She was sitting.
Oh.
And seated, she was at 7 feet. So she probably was
7'1" standing.
Yeah, at least 7'1" because her shins are 1 inch. That's the one weird thing about Frances. But
she doesn't care.
She doesn't care. 7'1" waddling like a duck. And that's the only thing I know about Frances McDormand. I didn't talk to her, and she was there, and it was sort of like I kind of smiled and waved, and she was on the phone, but I think she was faking it because she knew that we wanted to talk to her. But maybe she wasn't.
Yeah.
But it was just like sort of an awkward interaction, and I'm like, oh, like yeah, she does awkward interactions too, better than anybody. My God, she was so believable.
And that was her pretending because we know she's so comfortable.
Yeah.
Would you say that? Oh, how on the whole, awkward do you think your interactions are?
I feel profoundly awkward, but the feedback I've gotten from other people is that it doesn't necessarily feel like that.
Okay.
So, but I feel like I'm more authentic when I'm allowing myself to at least be a little awkward. How about you?
Depends on the situation. I would say, I don't know. I mean, I guess, and this ties into acting too, because sometimes I think as a person, depends on the person I'm talking to, but I would feel like most of them are a little, like, not awkward, but maybe not totally, like, casual. I don't think I've embodied, like, this smooth, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think that's me.
Right.
And sometimes that can be uncomfortable. I think it just depends on, like, who I'm talking to.
Right.
But then in certain scenes and stuff, it's like really fun to be so direct and like not in playing characters that are maybe not worried about like being liked or making the other person comfortable, because I think in my real life that's how I am, so that's why it's fun to sometimes just be like, you know what it is, sometimes I feel like sometimes there's, for me, a discomfort will arise if like if I'm like thinking about how the other person's feeling all the time and like, oh, are they okay? Are they comfortable?
Right.
But then in scenes sometimes it's fun to play someone who doesn't care.
Right.
How, like, putting that on the other person.
Right. Yeah. No, that is cool. I mean, it is something that I think, I don't know how it's going to work into acting yet or creativity for me necessarily, but I think there's something really appealing about honesty. Like, just that being the preeminent target in your life. And it's something that does make me nervous as well, because, like, I would want people to be comfortable and I would want people, but I'm starting to think that maybe there's something in just honesty, in almost like the vein of Frances McDormand, where it's like, this is what's right. But it's vulnerable also, because you're risking them not liking you, you're risking being wrong. Yeah. But I don't know how it would play yet. That's just something I've been thinking about for acting. Yeah. But it's interesting because, and to tie this back to the question, I wonder if something will pop up now.
Oh, yes.
Where of not feeling the need to maybe do what it seems like other people feel you need to do. Do you feel like that in your acting, or like in terms of how you just move as an artist? Or I don't mean physically, but
I think
I hop on one leg. I'm like, that's what I like.
Which I kind of do. Well, okay. I think, I don't know if I like have totally thought about that or like have really fleshed it out. And I think because I don't want to think about it too hard, or like, I think, I feel like I just know, and maybe subconsciously and consciously, that like if I think about something too much, some of like the whatever it is gone and like stripped away. Right. And then I think generally, like, I don't know. I think I'm just like drawn to people that I'm drawn to, and again, try not to like, but you mentioned like living in LA and that whole thing. Like, I think I've been here for a while, and the people that I will sometimes feel pressure to like make a connection. Like, I think a lot of people do, on set and like all of that, because it's kind of the narrative around it. But like, I think without thinking about it too hard, I've just gravitated towards the people that like I like and connect with, and I don't think I've thought about it much beyond that, I guess. Yeah. Or I try not to.
You like what you like.
Yeah, I think so.
And that's sort of true acting wise as well, where it's like, I like this.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, but I've definitely felt pressure to, like, if it's a really big emotional scene or something, I definitely will still feel that pressure and, like, try to do it and try to, like, make it something. And then I don't know how that, I don't think it always turns out well. Right. But I was working on something earlier this summer, and it was so intense every day.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, so emotional. And I did have to do this big emotional scene, but luckily it was, like, at the very end of the project, so there was a big build-up. But then there was a day of, like, for whatever reason, it was just, like, so pent up. And this has never happened to me before. It happens in, like, after therapy sometimes, or, like, an emotional conversation. I'll just be alone and, like, let out a good sob. And it happened, it was like we did a take, it didn't feel totally right, and then I kind of, like, quickly sped off to my room and just, like, sat on my couch and, like, wailed. And
then did you come back? Like, was it just to let it out? Or
yeah, it was, like, weeks of just the super...
Right.
And I would hear actors talking about that and be like, yeah, okay, maybe that's real. But it happened. It was just so, like... because it's, like, physiologically, if you're so anxious and, like, upset all the time for weeks, it's gonna come out.
Of course. Yeah.
So it came out in kind of a cool way. Like, it felt like a release of something.
Right. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Off screen.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, for sure. I've had that sort of experience once after a movie where it felt like where it was done and it's just done. Yeah. You know, it's weird. This reminds me of one thing, and I think I don't want to keep you doing this. Oh shit, we went for an hour. Wow. This is great. Hour 49.
Oh my. How long are the episodes usually?
I don't really like an hour or something. Okay. But like the longer the better. I feel like people can like watch what they want and
Part
take
2.
what they want. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, true actually. I guess we can cut this up. Every time that cut off, so we're gonna have 12 parts. But there was a thing on that sort of hitting the mark day. I would notice something early on, and I'm curious what you take from this. Maybe you won't even take anything from it, but early on, sometimes I would feel like I would do that, have the build up, and then leave set for like a really what I considered to be an emotion, like something that required a lot of emotion or whatever, like a connection or intensity, and then it would sort of break and I would release all of it after, and I was like, well, what's the difference? I'm like, oh, well, I'm holding on to like tension of holding on to it, so I would practice just try to like pretend we were done shooting and then do the scene. But the thing that happened recently is I walked onto set and I was very in that place for like personal reasons or whatever, but I was like, well, you know, it sort of makes sense anyway, so I'm not going to push that away. And then the weirdest thing happened, like just some weird sort of things about like technical things, like there was a whole bunch of wind blowing in my face that probably shouldn't have been, and then you know then I had to step off for a second. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm not feeling that, and there feels like a bit of the lid on it. I don't know if you felt that. And then something happened. I went and I just was with some people that I really loved, like on set that I felt very comfortable with and vulnerable and had really close to, and it just kind of softened me again, sort of opened me up again. And I'm like, I wonder what that was. I've talked to a lot of people about it because I'm like, it's such a weird thing because it's like that's not a technique. That's just loving people.
Yes.
What are you hearing in that?
I think it's the anti-technique because I experienced
That's the title of this one. The
anti-technique. I had a really similar thing, like in the past when something is supposed to be big and emotional, I like will really try to control it and like listen to a song that gets me somewhere, like do all of those things, but make it really internal. And then sometimes it works and other times it doesn't. But on this one, on the day that I had to do this like big emotional scene, I was the chillest I've been. I was like, I was actively trying not to like make it super internal. And I was like really close with the people I was working with, and I ate lunch outside with them, and like I think I was watching The Office or something through the day, but not as a way to like distract it. I was just doing the opposite of what I've done, and like not really trying to control it, talking to people that I like, and like taking in the atmosphere still, and then still getting there. Which I think just makes you like freer as a person sometimes, and maybe sometimes that does not, like the other is required, of a scene, but it totally made it feel like I was much more open, and it was much more accessible when, like, throughout the day, I was just...
Would you feel it throughout the day? Would you be like, oh, touching it kind of, it's like, oh, it's there? Or you would just completely kind of let it go?
I kind of felt like I was super amped. Kind of what I was describing earlier.
Oh, yeah.
About, like, I felt really amped for, like, 3 weeks. I remember that day I felt super, like, I was bouncing around. And I would be listening to music, but it was like Mrs. Potter's Lullaby by the Counting Crows. You know that song?
I don't know that song.
It's just kind of like, I was dancing. I couldn't sit still.
Yeah.
And so it felt like the emotion was, like, right there.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, as opposed to just, like, being in a dark room.
Right, yeah.
Which
headphones in, turning like this, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, it makes sense. You were kind of free, and it was there, and it was, yeah, and there's a trust to that. And that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's, like, kind of the thing of opening, or, like, staying open and not self-conscious. Because I don't know if that's it for everyone, but I think that was part of, like, when I would know that I had a big scene, I would get I would get self-conscious, like, pre even doing it, and kind of isolate myself.
Yeah, literally conscious of yourself and your emotional state. Yeah, and inwardly focused and stuff. Yeah.
So I tried to, but it sounds like you did the same. Like, it opened your,
I think it was like love in a way, being able to just also be seen. You know, I think there's something about, there was another experience where it was like a long day, and we shot like everything of this scene. It was like super intense, and then finally we got around to like my coverage of like this intense bit, and then it felt dry, and then we did it like 7 times, and to the director's credit, she came out and like sat with me and was like, you know, I was like, I'm frustrated, I don't feel like it's there, and she was like, what were you feeling? I talked to her for like 2 seconds, and just her sitting with me and like listening to me, and you know, hearing, and also me hearing it out of my own mouth and whatever, then it all came back to, okay, we're shooting, and we just did it. I think there's something to just being like with someone you trust, and at least, and then you feel comfortable, because also, like, if the stuff that the material you're dealing with is kind of like scary or just difficult, then you know, it is kind of like maybe a little natural to put a little guard up, but then maybe you feel a little comfortable for a second, and then it's like, okay, I can be vulnerable, and, you know, whatever. And also, maybe one thing that I just thought of to take from it is, like, that's not an acting technique to go stand with someone you love, you know, and have them like touch your arm.
But I kind of think
do what you want to, you know.
Do what you want to is another technique.
Do what you the non-technique technique. Do what you want to. Okay. Well, I don't want to keep you doing this too long. It's like a pleasure. I would talk about this all day.
Yes.
Do you have anything? I have a couple of wrap-up questions. Just like, do you have a piece of advice you could give? Like anything that just comes to you for like young actors or just actors in general?
Oh, I would say I should have thought about this. I feel like I think which I feel like I'm just gonna repeat what I said earlier, but like kind of trusting your instincts is really important for like certain projects, and just for each character, like staying in touch with yourself and your instincts is important. Also knowing that things come in waves, and it's kind of just the nature of the biz, and it's so easy to feel really bummed a lot of the time and then be on a high, and then like that I think is just, it's like about finding a middle ground. I think that's important, and I don't know if I've found that, but I think it's important to strive for that, and staying open. I think that's the biggest thing. I think that kind of solves everything.
Yeah, I really like that open room thing. I think that's something that I'm gonna try to highlight. Like you were saying,
floating
exactly, where the
objects.
things are, where you're not grasping anything. It's just things are floating by.
Yeah.
And then is there a book that you would recommend for any reason? It could be an acting book, could be anything.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have any acting. Just like a favorite
literally
book.
Could be that you just recommend people read for artists, but like if it's something that you.
Yeah.
You know what? Book, song, movie. We've sort of already done a movie.
Okay. Album that. Oh, I've been listening to a lot. I had this thought yesterday. Like whenever someone says, "What's your favorite artist, and then I told myself to say this. It's gotta be Yola Tango.
Oh yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah.
Just one that I could, even though I don't know all the songs by heart, it's like something that could play on a desert island forever.
Forever.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like relaxing. It's sort of mellow, but like there's there's musicality to it.
Yes.
It's great.
And also Purple Mountains. Do you listen to Purple Mountains?
No.
They've been big this summer for me. Book, My Brilliant Friend is my all-time favorite. And have you read that?
No.
Okay, My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante is my favorite book. And I think just an important read. I'm sure for artists, although it doesn't specifically mention art. but it's about relationships and family and everything. Life. It's a life book.
Great.
So
cool. Well, I guess this is our camera now. So bye guys. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll have more guests, and you keep tuning in and check out Abby in anything she's done because she's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Woo.